The summons from the stars in the heart of Earth's orbital command station. Captain Elara stood still as a message blinked across the central war table. The room was quiet, apart from the low hum of power cores and the occasional soft beep from tracking consoles. Outside the station's massive window, Earth glowed beneath her like a marble suspended in darkness. She tightened her grip on the console's edge. The message had come encoded in a language Earth hadn't fully cracked until 2 months ago. But now, there was no mistaking it. The Galactic Council had issued a summons. Humanity, a species barely a century into space exploration, was being called to answer for its actions in the Proxima conflict. Behind her, the doors hissed open. Ambassador Darius Vale entered the room, dressed in his usual understated grey suit, his expression unreadable. "You got it too?" he asked quietly. Elara nodded and turned the hologram to face him, a four-armed alien with translucent skin, and no mouth floated beside a symbol recognized from deep space broadcasts, justice scales formed by binary stars. "They're calling it a trial," she said. "But they've already decided what we are." Vale moved closer, his hands behind his back. "Barbarians." Elena's jaw tensed. "Because we used metal slugs instead of plasma. Because we fought back when they expected us to kneel." The alien envoy in the message named Zural of the Kefari species spoke with eerie calm. Its words were filtered through a translation matrix Earth scientists had reverse-engineered. The Council demanded Earth appear at Centurion Prime, the central legal world of the galaxy, to answer for what they described as disruptive, dangerous combat behavior and unlawful methods unbecoming of a civilized species. Ambassador Vale sighed, rubbing his temple. "They didn't contact us before the Krillins hit our colonies. But now that we've proven we can fight, they want answers. Or a scapegoat," Elara added. The Council hadn't lifted a finger. When the Krillin fleet burned through 3 frontier colonies, Earth had scrambled its defenses. Makeshift ships, orbital cannons repurposed from mining rigs, kinetic slug throwers cobbled together from old Earthbound prototypes, every desperate measure humanity had taken had kept them alive. And that, apparently, was the problem. Turned back to the console. "They think we broke their code of war, but no one told us there was a code until after we won." Vale was quiet for a moment, then he said, "We need to go. If we don't, they'll take it as guilt. If we do, we might have a chance to explain." She looked at him. "You think they'll listen?" "I think they're afraid," he replied. "Not of our weapons, but of what we represent." Within 24 hours, the decision was made. Earth would send a delegation half military, half civilian. Captain Rowe would command the tactical review team. Ambassador Vale would lead the defense. Alongside them, historian Dr. Elara Tan, linguist Farid Chun, and strategist Commander Julian Sato, 5 humans to stand before hundreds of alien species and explain why Earth had dared to survive on its own terms. Their transport ship, the Argent Wind, launched from Earth's orbital dockyard 3 days later. It was unarmed and painted in white and blue, the colors of peace. As they left Earth's gravity well, Elara stared out at the stars. "They don't understand us," she said softly. Julian, seated beside her, replied, "Then we'll make them." The journey to Centurion Prime took 6 days through folded space. During that time, the crew rehearsed endlessly. Vale reviewed council law precedents. Dr. Tan sifted through footage of the conflict. Elara reviewed every engagement Earth forces had undertaken, every decision made under pressure, every maneuver that had saved lives. Their strategy wasn't just about defending Earth's honor. It was about survival in a galaxy that measured civilization by how well you followed unwritten rules. Rules humans had never been told about. When the Argent Wind exited folded space, Centurion Prime unfolded before them, a crystalline planet with 3 glowing rings and a surface covered in mirror-like cities. Their ship was guided by automated beacons to a floating port shaped like a spiral shell. Hundreds of vessels orbited the planet, organic-looking ships, massive stone-like cruisers, clusters of light-forming sentient starships. Their arrival did not go unnoticed. As the humans disembarked, a delegation of towering alien figures waited. At the center stood Zural, the same envoy from the message. It floated on a cushion of light, its body iridescent like oil on water. "Welcome to Centurion Prime," it said through the translator. "The High Council awaits your presence, Ambassador." Vale stepped forward and bowed slightly. "We thank you for the opportunity to speak." Zural's eyes, black and glassy, locked onto Captain Rowe. "It is rare for a species to fight with such fury in its first contact war. The galaxy watches you with interest." Rowe didn't blink. "Then let them see who we really are." As they were escorted to their chambers, passing alien eyes watched them from high balconies and moving walkways. Alina felt the weight of it all pressing down on her. Dr. Tan broke the silence once they entered the delegation's quarters. We're not just defending ourselves from a trial, we're defending what it means to be human, Vale nodded. And we better make sure the galaxy learns that being different doesn't mean being dangerous. Captain Rowe looked out the window at the alien world that would soon judge them. Then we tell them the truth, she said, all of it. The trial was set for the next sunrise. One chance, one voice, one species, against the galaxy. The courtroom of 1,000 world Centurion primes sky shimmered in lavender hues as dawn approached. In the heart of the capital city, the Hall of Galactic Concord stood like a monument to impossible architecture. Shaped like a spiraling column of translucent crystal, it hovered above the surface, tethered to the ground by beams of light and pulsing gravity anchors. The humans arrived by sky shuttle, escorted by a silent fleet of sentinel drones. The closer they came, the more surreal the structure appeared, its walls alive with energy broadcasting the upcoming trial to billions across the stars. Captain Elara Trask stood beside Ambassador Vale, her eyes sweeping over the alien dignitaries. Gathering outside the hall, they came in shapes she'd only seen in briefing-scale diplomats from the Threnari Dominion, energy-based beings from the Luminarch Fold, hulking insectoids from the Garen hives, and aquatic species floating in spherical Hydra shells. No one spoke to them. Not yet. Do you feel like prey? Julian Sato asked quietly behind her. No, Alina said, but I can smell the tension in the air. They're not sure what to make of us. They're expecting monsters. Farid Chen added. After all, we won the Proxima War with tools they abandoned millennia ago. Ambassador Vale adjusted his collar and gave a sharp nod as the council's herald approached, a floating being of geometric light and shifting symbols. Its presence seemed to bend the very air around it. You may enter, the being said. The council is prepared to hear your case. Inside the hall, silence dominated. The courtroom was a vast amphitheater with no ceiling, just a view into the galaxy itself. The floor was polished stone embedded with starlight. The seats rose in circles, filled with hundreds of alien delegates. At the center, a raised platform hovered above the floor to circular discs connected by a glowing column. On one disc stood the prosecution, headed by a tall hooded figure with translucent skin and golden eyes. The other disc waited for the humans. The High Arbiter, a being formed of refracted light and flowing energy, descended from above and hovered over the chamber. Its voice was not heard through ears, but inside the mind calm lay it, and inarguable. This session of the Galactic High Council is now in order. The United Earth government stands accused of unlawful and uncivilized conduct during the Proxima Centauri conflict. The court invites the prosecution to proceed. The prosecutor stepped forward and bowed. I am Magistrate Felzia of the Harmonious Unity, it announced. I will demonstrate to this court that humanity, young, poses a threat not because of its weapons, but because of its will to use them without restraint. Alina clenched her fists but remained composed. The holographic display flared to life, showing the first days of the Krillin invasion. The alien narrator emphasized Earth's lack of formal declaration, its use of physical projectiles, and its improvisational strategies. Battles were dissected in front of the council, scenes of Earth's ships hiding in asteroid fields, launching slugs at faster-than-light drives, deploying drones as decoys, and even hacking enemy signals to trigger false retreats. This, Felz said with disdain, is not warfare, it is chaos, weaponized, no discipline, no structure, no adherence to protocol. Whispers filled the chamber. Several alien observers nodded grimly. Others looked disturbed. A few seemed fascinated. Dr. Elara Tan leaned forward, whispering to Ambassador Vale. They're trying to overwhelm them with visuals, make humans look like savages with fancy tools. Vale nodded but said nothing. His turn would come, Felzia continued, showing the turning point, Earth's strike at the Krillin flagship using magnetic mines smuggled in aboard civilian vessels. The result, the Krillin fleet scattered. A victory without formal surrender, but complete. And this, the prosecutor concluded, is why we must ask, can such a species be trusted to share the stars? Silence followed. Then, slowly the floor rotated, bringing the human delegation forward. Ambassador Vale stepped into the center of the disc, straight-backed, his voice steady. Honored members of the council, the prosecution has shown you how we fought. Now allow us to explain why we fought and how our survival demanded it. The chamber brightened. The human's holographic display lit up not with war footage, but with stills of colonies burning, evacuation ships under fire, civilian shelters breached, children fleeing under bombardment, families holding hands in the dark. No dramatic music, just reality. We did not start this war, Vale said. We did not seek to expand. We were colonists, scientists, farmers, engineers. Our outposts were attacked without warning. No message, no declaration, no offer of surrender. Captain Rowe took over the display, presenting the emergency communications logs. We had hours to respond. With nothing but mining lasers, construction vessels, and our knowledge of physics, a diagram showed how kinetic projectiles, deemed barbaric, had outperformed more refined plasma weapons in proximity to unstable gravity fields. Another clip showed Earth forces protecting escape pods by sacrificing command ships. We used what we had, Elara said firmly. We didn't ask for this war, but we weren't going to die quietly. The chamber shifted. Some aliens leaned forward now, curious. Questioning Dr. Tan brought up statistics. Despite limited resources, our casualty ratio was the lowest in recorded Council conflict history. Krillin losses 87% survived and were treated. Earth losses nearly 40%, but we didn't retaliate against retreating forces. We didn't annihilate. We defended, creatively. Farid Chen spoke next, bringing in linguistic records, and despite being under siege, we broadcast surrender options in over 50 translated languages. The Krillins never responded. Ambassador Vale finished the defense's opening with calm power. If thinking differently is a crime, then perhaps the galaxy needs more criminals like us. Because survival is not barbarism. Survival is the foundation of civilization. The High Arbiter remained silent. Then finally, it spoke. The court will adjourn for now. Reassess is granted until the next rotation. The delegation stepped down. The whispers followed them. They could feel the tide shifting, even if only slightly. As they returned to their chambers, Julian Sato exhaled. We didn't lose them. No, Elara agreed. But we haven't won them yet either. Ambassador Vale glanced out at the alien spires lit in the dusk light. This is just the beginning. The real battle is changing their minds. Not with weapons but with truth. Dr. Tan looked at her tablet. Then we better prepare. Because tomorrow we show them everything. They all knew the path forward wasn't easy. But if humanity could survive the Proxima War, they could survive this. The court would see not just their fire but their humanity. And that, perhaps, would be the beginning of change. Shadows in the archive. The artificial daylight inside Centurion Prime's judicial district had dimmed to a deep violet, indicating the end of the Council's operating cycle. But in the human delegation's quarters, no one rested. The trial had stirred something. Rumors, whispers, shifting glances from delegates that hadn't spoken before. Humanity's defense had planted seeds of doubt, not only about Earth's actions, but about the very foundation of the Galactic Council's structure. Captain Elara Rose stood at a digital table, reviewing footage of their court session. She watched herself repeat the words again and again. We didn't ask for this war, but we weren't going to die quietly. Her voice echoed back at her through the playback system, sounding both distant and resolute. Behind her, Commander Julian Sato and Farid Chen were going through cross-examination plans. Vale was attended to a closed diplomatic session with a group of neutrals from the Iridari consensus, and Dr. Tan was missing entirely. She said she was going to the archives, Chen said something didn't line up with the Council's timeline of the Proxima raids. Elara nodded. Let her dig. Something smells off, and I don't believe in coincidences anymore. She turned toward the window. Outside, shuttles moved through orderly flight lanes above the glowing cityscape. Beneath their beauty, something rotted. Hours passed before Dr. Elara Tan returned. Her face was pale, and her hand shook as she clutched her tablet. I found something, she said, and you're going to want to sit down. Elara didn't. She leaned in closer. What is it? Tan placed her tablet on the table and brought up a stream of documents. Ancient communications between Krillin commanders and unidentified intermediaries, contracts, schedules, mining agreements, all dated long before the war began. They weren't just attacking us, Tan whispered. They were already planning to divide our colonies, even Earth. This wasn't a rogue invasion. It was part of a larger plan, and some of the council members were in on it. Julian looked up sharply. Are you saying the Galactic Council helped start the Proxima War? No, Tan replied. I'm saying they let it happen, maybe even encouraged it. Farid leaned forward. But why? Earth has nothing of value to them, right? That's where you're wrong, Tan said. Our system is full of helium-3 rare isotopes, organic compounds, and our biosphere unmatched. The Krillins didn't attack for war, they came for extraction. Alina stepped back, her throat tightened. Show me the proof, she demanded. Tan didn't hesitate. The files appeared: transaction logs, encrypted communication strings, shipping manifests tied to corporations operating in council-registered networks. Names appeared, logos, the Harmonious Unity, the Stellar Concordat, the Vexcar Trade Assembly, the same species leading the prosecution. That's why they want us. On trial, Alina muttered, not because we fought, but because we exposed how fragile their system really is. Julian looked furious. They wanted a quick slaughter. Scare the primitives, take the resources, move on before the galaxy noticed. But we didn't die. We adapted, and now we're the loose thread that could unravel everything. We have to present this, Farid said. Alina nodded. Not yet. We can't throw it in their faces without preparing our defense. They'll just claim it's misinformation. We need allies. As if summoned by thought, Ambassador Vale returned, looking winded. I just came from the Iridari, he said. They're curious. Some are starting to think the Council's laws are too rigid. Others are quietly furious. Dr. Tan handed him the tablet. They're going to be more than curious after this. Vale read the contents in silence. When he finished, he looked up slowly. This trial isn't about military tactics anymore. It's about who controls justice in the galaxy. Alina's voice was low but clear, and whether truth still has a place in that system. The following day, the chamber buzzed with fresh intensity. The High Arbiter had called for additional perspectives from non-aligned observers, a subtle way of letting everyone know the winds were shifting. The Andromedan observer, swirling, being named Caesar of X-Rose first. While we understand the Council's desire for order, it said, we must also consider the implications of punishing a species for innovating under pressure. Shah's words weren't loud, but they carried weight. The Andromedans were respected, ancient, and famously neutral. Krillin representatives, flanked by silent guards, sat in cold stillness. They hadn't spoken since the trial began. Their silence now seemed ominous. The High Arbiter turned to the humans. Earth delegation, do you have any new evidence to submit? Vale stood. Not today, Your Grace, but tomorrow we will present the foundation of our full defense, and some unexpected revelations. The Arbiter's form pulsed a faint green approval perhaps. That night, Alina sat alone, watching the stars from their chamber's terrace. She remembered her first spacewalk, the silence, the vastness, the beauty. She thought space was honest, nothing to hide, everything open. Now she knew better. She could feel something building, a reckoning not just for Earth but for the galaxy. Humanity had always found its place by rewriting the rules. On Earth, in orbit, and now in a courtroom of stars. And this time, they wouldn't just survive, they would change everything. The day truth shattered. The Council, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic High Court, was unusually quiet. The air, usually filled with whispers in 100 alien dialects, now felt dense with anticipation. On this day, the galaxy wasn't just watching, they were holding their breath. Captain Elara Trask stood at the edge of the floating platform that served as Earth's designated position. To her right, Ambassador Vale studied his notes one final time. Commander Sato paced behind them while Dr. Tan and Farid Chen waited beside a sealed data core glowing with pale blue light. It was the culmination of everything they had uncovered. The archive leaks, the shipping logs, the secret communications. They had the truth and it was time to wield it. Across the chamber, Magistrate Felsier and the other accusers stood like stone pillars. None of them moved, but Alina could feel the tension radiating from their position. The Council had wanted a display of remorse. Instead, they were about to face a mirror. The High Arbiter descended from the crystalline dome above, pulsing violet. The Council will now resume proceedings. Earth delegation, you may proceed with your additional evidence. Ambassador Vale stepped forward, his voice, calm but sharp, carried across the chamber. Honored Council, observers, and neutral factions, humanity stands before you, accused not of conquest or genocide, but of refusing to die quietly. We've listened to your allegations. We've explained our tactics. But what we haven't done yet is show you why this trial exists. He nodded to Farid, who tapped the display. The holographic projection filled the center of the chamber. It showed the initial Krillin assault already known to all, but this time, a new data thread branched off. Intercepted communications dated months before the conflict. The voices weren't human. They were council members. System secured. Resource potential high. Local species unaware. Another recording followed. Prepare extraction protocols. Ensure proxies don't link back to us. Krillins will take the blame. Murmurs exploded. Across the tiers of delegates, one of the aquatic observers floated upward in agitation, emitting high-frequency pulses that echoed like whale song through the chamber. Others leaned forward, eyes narrowing, mandibles twitching, bioluminescent skin dimming with discomfort. Vale raised a hand to silence the growing unrest. What you just heard were transmissions between Council-affiliated commercial entities and Krillin military liaisons coordinating the seizure of Earth's colonies. Not by open war, but by engineered conflict camouflaged as a local incident. Dr. Tan took over. This wasn't just a rogue Krillin move, it was a test. We've uncovered evidence that other emerging civilizations, 7 to be exact, suffered similar fates. All had rich biospheres. All disappeared after similar unprovoked attacks. Julian tapped the display, highlighting star maps. All of them were ruled accidental collapses, natural disasters, rebellions, but in every case, one constant remained. Post-collapse mining and harvesting rights were quietly transferred to Council and Consortia. Magistrate Felzir burst forward, robes flaring with energy. This is a fabrication. Manufactured data, designed to distract from Earth's violations. Ambassador Vale didn't flinch. Then explain this. The display shifted to Liv, Footajan Andromedan intelligence officer, Caesar of X, appearing in the chamber through secure link. These records were not fabricated, Caesar said calmly. They match encrypted transmissions we intercepted over a decade ago and were unable to decrypt until now. Earth's analysis is correct. This trial is not merely legal, it is political. The silence that followed wasn't just shook, it was unraveling. Delegates looked at one another. Some whispered behind flickering data screens. Others began streaming the evidence live to their home systems. For the first time in a millennium, the High Council had lost control of the narrative. The High Arbiter's form pulsed wildly, colors shifting faster than any observer could read. This court demands explanation from the parties implicated in these recordings, but none came. The representatives of the Vexcar Assembly, the Harmonious Unity, and the Stellar Concordat remained motionless. Then, in unison, they disconnected from the tribunal. Their platform dimmed and receded. They're running, Julian said quietly. Alina turned to Vale. That means we win, right? But the ambassador shook his head. It means they've lost. What happens next depends on the Council's soul. If it has won, Caesar's voice returned. I move to suspend all charges against Earth pending full investigation into Council corruption. Furthermore, I move to reform galactic warfare doctrine with input from neutral and emerging species. One by one, voices joined in agreement. Not all, but enough. But enough. The chamber was in chaos, but it was a new kind of chaos. Not of fear but awakening. Earth had forced the galaxy to look in a mirror, and what it saw was not the monster it expected but the cracks in its own reflection. Later, back in the delegation chambers, the humans sat in silence. No celebration. Not yet. Captain Rowe finally broke it. We've set something in motion we may not be able to stop. Good, Julian said. Let it spread. Let them question everything, Dr. Tan added. This might not be the end of the trial, but it's the beginning of something else. Ambassador Vale nodded. Change. And it started because humanity refused to stay quiet. Not with weapons, but with truth. Alina looked up at the stars beyond the window. They didn't shimmer the same way anymore. They shimmered with possibility. The crack in the galactic order, the next galactic rotation came with silence, an unfamiliar silence. The Council's bustling chambers, once a theater of booming declarations and ceremonial posturing, now echoed with the absence of certainty. Several high-ranking delegates from the Harmonious Unity, the Vexcar Assembly, and the Stellar Concordat had vacated their seats, either recalled by their governments or quietly removed. Their disappearance was proof enough. The Council had seen betrayal not from the accused, but from its own elite. Captain Elara Trask stood beside a tall glass window in the human quarters, watching the alien skyline swirl in its daily cycle of refracted light. The towers that glistened in iridescent curves now looked more like watchful sentinels than symbols of progress. Below, a crowd of mixed species gathered in the open plazas. They weren't protesting, they were listening, tuned into broadcasts of the trial of Earth's defense, and of the corruption it had exposed. Behind her, Ambassador Vale entered the room with slow steps, a tablet in hand. It's happening, he said simply. Alina turned. What the ripple? He replied, setting the tablet down. Look at this. The display projected dozens of alien news feeds, translated headlines from dozens of systems, council integrity in question. After Earth's trial bombshell, emerging civilizations demand protections against economic exploitation. Human methods sparked debate over combat ethics. Even more surprising were messages from independent colonies and previously silent observers. A coalition of non-aligned systems, the Iridari, the Zenith Collective, and the Deep Space Silverix congregation released a joint statement supporting Earth's right to defend itself using its own judgment when unprovoked and uninformed. By galactic law, what you did, Vale said, gave them permission to question things they were never allowed to. Commander Sato entered next, looking energized. We've just been invited to speak at an emergency panel on warfare standards. 37 civilizations signed a request to hear Earth's tactical doctrine firsthand. Alina raised a brow. They called us barbarians 2 days ago. Now they want lessons. Sato smirked. They're afraid of us. But not in the way you think. They're afraid we survived where others didn't. And now they're realizing that reason might be that we weren't wrong, we were just unbound. Dr. Tan joined them, holding a fresh bundle of archived translations. It's more than that. There's growing discussion of Earth being appointed to a council subcommittee on interstellar conflict reform. They want us to help rewrite the laws we were once accused of breaking. Alina crossed her arms. And what happens to the ones who wrote the old laws? Vale gave a quiet nod. That's coming too. Char of X just filed a motion to formally open an investigation into the Stellar Concordat's involvement in the disappearance of the Halari species. Alina's gaze darkened. The Halari had vanished a decade ago. Their disappearance was written off as internal collapse. Now they might have been silenced. The door chimed, and Farid Chen opened it to reveal a surprise guest, Zurul, the Keferi envoy who had delivered Earth's original summons. May I speak with your delegation? Zurul asked, its tone unusually subdued. Vale nodded, and the alien entered with deliberate slowness, its glassy skin slightly dimmer than before. When I first arrived on Lunar Station, Zurul began, I believed I was delivering justice. I believed you were reckless and dangerous, that your species was an unpredictable variable in a fragile galactic system. I see now I was wrong. Alina tilted her head slightly. You've changed your mind. I've changed my question, Zurul corrected. Instead of asking why humans broke the rules, I now ask why did no one question whether those rules still served justice. It was the closest thing to an apology they'd ever received from the Council, Zurul continued. I've been asked to serve on the Oversight Committee for Protocol Reform. I requested that Earth be placed as co-chair. The room fell still. Co-chair, Farid echoed. That's not a seat you give to a criminal. It's the seat you give to someone who just saved your system from collapse, Zurul replied. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Vale leaned forward. Will the Council approve it? Zurul nodded. Many already have. The old powers are losing influence, and they know it. Alina stepped forward. Then let them know something else. Zurul looked at her with focused eyes. We didn't fight to rule, we fought to survive. But if our survival means others can live differently too, then we'll help build something better, not just for us. For every world that's too small to fight alone. The diplomat gave a deep bow. Then welcome to the new galaxy. Later that night, Alina walked alone through the gallery corridor overlooking the council chamber. She watched species of every form entering and exiting debates, meetings, votes, and it struck her this wasn't just a trial anymore. It had become a referendum. On truth, on courage, on what happened when someone, anyone, finally said, no, that's not justice. The galaxy hadn't expected Earth to be that voice, but they were, and now, everything was changing. The turning tide. The halls of the Galactic Council had never witnessed such movement. In the days following Earth's evidence release, meetings once bound in rigid ceremony now hummed with activity. Private conferences were scheduled by the hour. Subcommittees formed. Ancient laws once etched into data crystal were under review. The chamber's high columns, once symbols of unquestionable order, now cast long shadows over a fractured empire of laws, and Earth stood quietly in the center of it all. Ambassador Vale entered the council forum with calm purpose. He'd been summoned by a joint petition of newly formed factions, aliens who, until recently, had no voice in council affairs. Some came from barely charted regions of the spiral arm, others from marginalized colonies that had lived in the economic shadow of the council for centuries, and now, they wanted Earth's help, not in weapons, not in war, but in reform. Beside him, Captain Elara wore no armor, Only the dark blue diplomatic garb of the human delegation, accented with a silver clasp shaped like Earth itself. Her boots echoed through the long corridor as they entered the forum, watched by eyes no longer filled with suspicion, but something else hope. The forum lights dimmed as a projection displayed the new proposal, the Terran resolution, drafted jointly by humans and a growing coalition of smaller worlds. It aimed to rewrite the interstellar engagement doctrine, replacing inflexible combat etiquette with situational defense ethics. Focused on civilian safety and innovation. At its core, the right to adapt. Commander Julian Sato stood before the panel, presenting tactical logs from the Proxima War. "We improvised because we had to," he said. "Had we followed standard council protocols, all 3 colonies would have fallen within 72 hours. Instead, our people survived because we dared to break from tradition." Alien murmurs stirred the air. One elder of the Threnari, a species of scaled philosophers, asked, "But what of restraint? Without rules, do we not risk chaos?" Dr. Elara Tan responded with quiet power, "Rules without reflection become shackles. And when those rules protect corrupt interests rather than the lives they were designed to serve, they are not order, they are oppression." The chamber fell silent. No one argued. Then something unexpected happened. From the upper tiers of the gallery, a representative from the Valori enclave floated downward, a species so secretive they hadn't spoken publicly. In over 2 centuries, their voice, projected as a melodic whisper, rang out across the chamber. "When our kind emerged," the Valori said, "we lost millions because we adhered to Council war doctrine. We were told not to resist, when invaded only to delay. Our enemies didn't delay, they annihilated. Perhaps, had we been more like Earth, more of us would remain." A low vibration of agreement rippled through the floor. Non-verbal but deeply felt. But not everyone celebrated. Later that evening, in the privacy of Earth's diplomatic quarters, Ambassador Vale stood over a secure transmission, brows furrowed. "They're trying to stall the vote," he said. "The remaining Old Guard factions, what's left of the Concordat and Unity bloc, they're claiming Earth's data violates interspecies evidence-sharing protocols." Alina stood near the window, watching the alien sky pulse with electric auroras. "They're not trying to win, they're trying to run out the clock. They've called for an emergency ethics committee," Julian added. "Convened tomorrow morning. They're going to try to bar Earth from participating in protocol reform on procedural grounds." "Let them," Farid Chen said. "We have the recordings and the galaxy has seen them. You can't unshow truth." Vale looked toward Dr. Tan. "Can we connect with any of the neutral powers?" She nodded. The Silverix and Iridari both expressed support. "And Czar of X from Andromeda just sent this." She played the message aloud. "Earth delegation, if they try to silence you, we will speak. You have given the galaxy something rare, self-awareness. We will not let that light be extinguished." The following morning, the ethics committee met in a smaller chamber high above the council hall. It was a room reserved for quiet decisions often made without notice, without press, without noise. But today, the chamber was full. Not just with diplomats, with journalists, observers, and streaming holograms projected live across dozens of systems. The attempt to bar Earth failed before it could begin. Czar of X took the floor before the old bloc could speak. "In a galaxy where we pride ourselves on progress," Czar said, "we allowed ourselves to become ancient in thinking. Earth did not show us war. It showed us the cost of forgetting why we formed this council in the first place." One by one, allies followed. The Valori, the Iridari, even the stoic elders of the crystalline Dalton Order, who had not spoken in 500 years. The last to rise was Zural. "I once thought humans were dangerous, but now I believe something far more unsettling. They are not dangerous because they are violent. They are dangerous because they ask questions that force us to see our reflection." Ambassador Vale stepped forward for Earth's closing words. "If questioning injustice makes us dangerous," he said, "then let us be dangerous together, not to each other but to the lies that protected the powerful for far too long." The vote proceeded, broadcast in real time across the galactic network. The Terran resolution passed. Earth was no longer just on trial, it had become a teacher. Humanity's legacy among the stars. Centurion Prime's sky was clear when the final session of the trial convened. The sun, a pale white star that bathed the crystalline city in silver light, shone down as if aware of the moment's gravity. Delegates from over 200 civilizations packed the Grand Council chamber, from ancient species carved from living stone to gaseous beings whose bodies shimmered in glass spheres. They had all come to witness history. The tension of judgment, had given way to something else, now anticipation. Captain Elara Trask stood tall on the human platform, flanked by Ambassador Vale, Dr. Lira Tan, Farid Chen, and Commander Julian Sato. None of them wore armor or medals. They came only with the truth, and the scars to prove it. When the High Arbiter descended, its crystalline form glowing with calm radiance, everyone in the chamber fell silent. Not because they were told to, but because they wanted to hear what came next. The Galactic Council has reviewed the evidence presented. The Arbiter's voice rang out, not from the air, but within every mind present. It has witnessed testimony from victims and survivors, from old powers and emerging ones. It has seen not only the consequences of Earth's defense, but the corruption that forced it. The light pulsed slowly, solemnly. We find the United Earth government not guilty of violating interstellar warfare protocols. There was no applause, no cheering, only a heavy, collective breath, an entire galaxy exhaling centuries of fear and silence. But we go further, the Arbiter continued. For too long, this council has elevated tradition over truth. We have mistaken ritual for justice, and in doing so we allowed rot to take root. The chamber's lights dimmed. Then a new projection appeared above the diacephal list of council members found complicit in the Krillin resource conspiracy. Names that had once commanded empires now burned in red across the dome. 3 member states were officially expelled. 12 more faced investigation, audits, arrests. Zurul of the Keferi stepped forward from the circle of judgment and addressed the chamber directly. Earth's arrival in our galactic community was unorthodox, but in revealing our flaws, they did not break us. They reminded us why this council was formed, not to preserve hierarchy, but to preserve hope. And then, the moment that no one expected, the High Arbiter turned toward the human delegation, in recognition of Earth's contribution to restoring the integrity of galactic law. It declared, "We offer the United Earth government full membership in the Galactic Council, not as a subordinate, but as a charter species, with immediate advisory privileges on warfare, ethics, emerging civilization rights, and exploratory protocols." Alina's eyes widened. Julian blinked. Even Vale looked stunned for the first time in weeks. Dr. Tan whispered, "That's never happened before, not in 1,000 years." It was an unprecedented offer. Earth, the newcomer, elevated to the same status as the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, not because of its power or its technology, but because it dared to question what everyone else accepted. Ambassador Vale stepped forward, his voice steady. "On behalf of Earth, we accept, and we pledge to serve not from above, but alongside, to protect not just our people, but the principles we now share." After the session ended, the chamber didn't empty. Instead, the delegates lingered. Dozens approached the human team, some curious, others grateful. Even the Valori enclave, who had never made diplomatic contact with another species in over a century, offered a sealed alliance gesture. "Looks like we made a few friends," Julian said, grinning. Alina nodded slowly. "And a few enemies, I'm sure," Farid chimed in. "At least this time, they'll have to follow the new rules." That evening, the human delegation boarded the Argent Wind for their journey back to Earth. The ship had been resupplied by request of the Council, now bearing diplomatic tags and a ceremonial beacon glowing at its aft. As it lifted from the platform, the crowd gathered below didn't chant or cheer. They simply stood together, different species, different worlds, watching silently as the humans ascended toward the stars. In the ship's observation deck, Alina stared out the viewport as Centurion Prime shrank behind them. "We changed something, didn't we?" she asked quietly. Vale stood beside her. "Not just something," he said. "Everything." Dr. Tan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "I've already received a dozen requests for Earth literature on ethics, negotiation, even creative problem solving. Apparently, they want to study how we think." Julian chuckled. "Wait till they get to Sun Tzu," Farid grinned. "Or Star Trek." Everyone laughed softly for a moment, not because the mission was over, but because the weight had finally lifted. The danger had passed. The truth had survived. Hours later, Earth came into view, its oceans blue, its cities glowing like warm veins across the surface. To outsiders, it was still just another death world, known for gravity, storms, wild biodiversity, and unpredictable weather. But now, it had become something more. A symbol. In the final transmission sent to the Council, Earth's president addressed the galaxy. "To those who once called us unpredictable, we agree. But unpredictability is not violence, it is creativity. It is resilience. It is the beating heart of every species that ever dared to rise beyond its limits. We are human. We will always be human, and now we are part of something greater. As the argent wind descended through the atmosphere, a crowd gathered in the plains outside Geneva base. Families, veterans, children, who had watched their world on trial from afar. When Captain Rose stepped onto Earth's soil, they didn't rush her, they didn't demand victory speeches. They just stood with her quiet and proud. Vale approached with a small smile. They say history is written by the victors. Then let's write something better, Elara replied. And as Earth's blue skies welcomed its heroes home, the stars above whispered a new promise, a galaxy no longer bound by silence, but led by those who dared to speak, fight, and dream differently. A galaxy forever changed by humanity's stand for truth.